Hi there everyone, welcome to Techcravers. So the other day, my YouTube channel reached an incredible milestone. Namely, 10,000 of you out there have chosen to subscribe to my channel. For me, it feels completely surreal, considering that I do this simply because I enjoy it. I just find it fun to work with all these different kind of handhelds and other tech as well, and I enjoy recording videos and editing the content. But the fact that a whopping 10,000 of you would want to join me on my YouTube journey is beyond my wildest dreams. Even if we were 1,000 or even 100 at this point, I would have been equally thrilled. But the truth is that this channel has grown a lot faster than I had ever anticipated, and I haven't had the chance to sit down and truly appreciate what we have going on here. And don't get me wrong, we are still a very small channel, but everything is relative, and like I said, I never would have imagined Techcravers to be this big after just a year. Anyway, so I thought we would do that today by going through some of the handhelds I've looked at in various contexts over the past year. And in the end, I will also host my first ever giveaway, so make sure to check that out as well. But first, let's get a little personal. My real name is Tobias. I'm a father of 2 young boys and I live with my partner in the north of Sweden. I don't know, but you probably have already heard from my English that I struggle with some words, and now you know why. I do this only as a hobby in my spare time, and I actually work in HR for a living, so all of the videos you see from me are actually the result of what I like to do in the evenings when my boys are sleeping. I've always been a real tech and gaming enthusiast, and I have been modding my consoles and handhelds for as long as I can remember, starting with my first Xbox over 20 years ago. I simply love tinkering with different types of tech and gadgets, so doing these kinds of videos feels quite natural for me, and I hope you're inspired to do the same when you watch some of them. So a little backstory first. A couple of years ago I started an Instagram account where I started posting different tech-related clips that I found funny or interesting myself. To my surprise, this account rapidly grew and gained around 100k followers in a year or two, and encouraged by this I created a website where I wrote about the latest gaming and tech news, focusing solely on topics that I found interesting myself. Fast forward a couple of years and I finally summoned the courage to post a video on YouTube, something that I wanted to do for ages but didn't dare because of fear of being subject to mean comments, hate or mockery because of my bad pronunciation. So anyway, my YouTube journey started just about a year ago when I bought an Anbernic RG552, and for some reason, which I can't even remember anymore, finally decided to dare to upload a video of me playing Banjo-Kazooie on it. And as I said, I wanted to start a YouTube channel for years, but fear of mean comments and disbelief in myself that I didn't have what it takes to make good content stopped me. But a valuable lesson that I've learned from my first year on YouTube is that people on the whole are much kinder than my initial expectations. I get so many nice comments every day, and I want you to know that it really cheers me up. So with all that said, for the rest of this video, we're taking a look at some of the handhelds that led up to this moment, and I will share what I like and don't like about them. And what better way to start than with the handheld that started it all, the Anbernic RG552. As I mentioned earlier, the RG552 from Anbernic is the handheld emulator that got me starting on YouTube. Just holding this in my hands give me flashbacks on how much I've learned over the past year, both about the handheld emulator market but also about YouTube and how I want my content to be. I'm also not going to hide that I'm incredibly inspired by the big giants in the field such as ETA Prime, Russ and Taki, to name a few. But back to the RG552. What I like about this device is how incredibly well built it is. It feels heavy and has a premium feel to it despite being made out of plastic. The 5.36-inch screen with the 1920 by 1152 resolution is still today one of my favorite screens to enjoy my retro games on. However, I don't like the shoulder buttons as they are non-stacked and the same height, making it easy to misclick in the heat of battle. And the size of this device also makes it too big just to bring it in your pocket on the go. AYN Odin Pro took me from being a true handheld emulator newbie to seeing the incredible potential that actually rested in the hands of these handheld developers. Now I was happily able to carry my PlayStation 2 library with me to play anywhere I felt like it. And it was also with the Odin that I became interested in tinkering with the device and realized that I could help others by recording guides and tutorials on how to do said tinkering. And what I love about the Odin Pro is how extremely comfortable it is in your hands and how the devs at AYN really have thought this product through. I actually made an AYN Odin Pro Revisited in 2023 video quite recently that you could watch after this. And there isn't really anything I don't like about the Odin. But if I do have to come up with anything, it's that the processor was a bit outdated when it came out last year, and it would have been awesome to see what a slightly newer model could have achieved in its place. But of course that would affect the price as well. Now for another Anbernic product. The RG503 created some hype in the handheld emulator community in advance when it turned out that they would reuse the same OLED screens that were previously found in Sony's PlayStation Vita consoles. Unfortunately, that turned out to be the only interesting thing about this console, as the rest were hardly upgrades from older models at all. Actually, rather the opposite, as the RK3566 CPU is a worse processor than the RK3399 CPU that sits in the older Anbernic RG552. The device itself was also, in my opinion, of very mediocre quality, with cheap plastic that felt fragile if you shook it. But to be honest, for playing the slightly older systems, such as Game Boy Advance, PlayStation and maybe Nintendo DS, I find it kind of hard to believe that there is a better screen to look at. But that's also everything that's positive with the RG503 from Anbernic. Now, I was actually going to skip the Steam Deck in this recap, but then I felt like I still wanted to mention it briefly. After all, it was the one that got this channel to start growing, and probably also the one that got several of you watching right now to subscribe to my channel. Speaking of which, it would really make my day if you could leave a comment down below on why you started subscribing to my channel, as it's something I always think about. Anyway, the Steam Deck is not something I consider to be a pocketable handheld emulator, but rather a portable, full-fledged gaming PC. And as you all probably know by now, I have made and still make videos and tutorials of various Steam Deck related topics. My most recent one being my updated 2023 emulation tutorial. And what I love about this device is that Valve created an extremely affordable alternative to not only other handheld PCs, but to desktop PCs as well. What I don't really like about the Steam Deck is that the Steam OS is based out of Linux, and it's the default operating system. Something that already is difficult to do in Windows is usually much more difficult to do in Linux. Fortunately, there are geniuses like the creators of EmuDeck who manage to make things relatively easy even in Linux. Next, onto something that I wanted to love in advance. I jumped on a pre-order of the Retroid Pocket 3 to get it as soon as possible, as the predecessor Retroid Pocket 2 Plus had been praised in unison by handheld fans. Unfortunately, I was disappointed once again, as it turned out to be an underperforming CPU as with the RG503 that wasn't up to much. The disappointment was made worse by the fact that the older Odin Pro had outperformed over a half year earlier, and the Retroid Pocket 3 didn't come close to its performance. Something that made my experience even worse was that the left joystick didn't even work out of the box. I had to unscrew my unit and plug in a switch myself to get it work. And with that being said, in terms of design and size, the Retroid Pocket 3 is still one of my absolute favorites. It reminds me a lot of Switch Lite, but smaller, and has a perfect size to bring with you on the go. Not only one, but two handhelds from Anbernic are up next, the RG353P and the RG353V. They are essentially the same device on the inside, but as you have already noticed, some slight difference on the outside. The only difference between the two devices in terms of internals is that the virtually oriented 353V only has one speaker, while the 353P has dual speakers for stereo output. The outside is, however, another story. The 353P has a SNES controller-esque design with stacked shoulder buttons, and it's actually very comfortable to hold for longer periods of time, while the 353V has a vertical Game Boy approach, and it unfortunately makes my hands cramp after longer periods of playing. However, I love both of these devices' flirtation with Nintendo's old retro designs, and happily take one of them with me when I commute to work, for example. The last Anbernic product I want to mention in this summary is the somewhat new RG405M. This device released just a few weeks ago, and it has quickly become one of my favorite everyday emulators. It's capable of running games up to and including most GameCube games without any issues, at least if you're ready to tinker with the emulator settings. The only real drawback I can think of is the slightly larger 4-inch display that makes retro games running at native resolution a bit more pixelated than it would do on a 3.5-inch display. It's also equipped with parallel shoulder buttons, but at least the L2 and R2 buttons are slightly raised, making it easier to distinguish which buttons you are pressing. The Hall sensor analog sticks are great and will never start drifting thanks to that magnetic connection. This is also by far the most durable handheld emulator in this list, and that's something that I at least really appreciate. I never got to play around with the very popular Miyoo Mini. In fact, it was so popular that anytime I tried to order one, I was always too late to the party and the stock was always sold out. Now, maybe that's not so strange, given that Miyoo Mini has constantly had extremely high demand and very low production rates. Therefore, I was delighted when Miyoo announced that they would be releasing the successor Miyoo Mini Plus earlier this year. However, some skepticism immediately arose when it turned out that the Miyoo Mini Plus was the exact same device as the Miyoo Mini, but in a slightly larger form factor. However, it turned out that I didn't need to worry. The Miyoo Mini Plus is a perfect little emulator for anyone looking to carry their games from Game Boy to Game Boy Advance and PlayStation with them on the go. And despite having a form factor that I'm normally not a fan of, I really loved using the Miyoo Mini Plus. It comes ready to use straight out of the box, and it requires no real prior knowledge from you as a user, which several of the Android-based emulators do. In fact, I purposely delayed publishing this video as I wanted time to test Retroid's latest handheld, the Retroid Pocket Flip, before I did. The Retroid Pocket Flip is the first clamshell emulator that I was hooked on in advance, and of course I'm aware that there have been a couple of different ones before, from Powkiddy and Funkey among others, but none of them really appealed to me in the same way as the Flip did. And after playing with the Retroid Pocket Flip for a few weeks now, I can only say that it's a really good device. I like being able to close the lid and minimize the risk of scratches on the screen, and I like that PlayStation 2 games work on it, at least if you're willing to tinker with the settings. And in case I haven't made that clear yet, that's something I really enjoy. So overall, I really like this device. In fact, I can even appreciate the sliders for analog sticks in some games, at least more than I like it on the Nintendo 3DS. But now to that giveaway I was mentioning in the beginning, I want to give something back for all the support that I get. And to celebrate 10k subscribers, this time I'm giving away the recently released Powkiddy RK2023. It's a great little handheld that can emulate everything up to and including N64 if you're willing to tinker some with the settings. You can watch my review of it to see what I mean. And it's very easy to register for the giveaway. All you have to do is to be subscribed to my channel and leave a comment on this video. That's it. Easy, right? I will update in a future video or in my community tab when the winner has been drawn. Anyone can participate as long as DHL ships to your country, and you have until the end of May to enter the giveaway. Giving away stuff is something I really would like to do more often, but it actually costs me over $50 to ship outside of the EU, so unfortunately that's nothing I can afford every now and then. But hopefully we can do another when we hit another milestone. And that will do for this time. Thank you once again for watching my content and subscribing to my channel. This whole video has been a way for me to say thank you to each and every one of you, and I hope you liked it. And instead of asking you for the usual likes and comments, I'd like to finish by once again asking you to write a line or two in the comment section why you chose to start subscribing to my channel. If you don't remember, I'd just be happy to hear which handheld you prefer. Maybe it's one of the devices I talked about in this video. And don't forget, just by commenting and subscribing, you enter my giveaway of the Powkiddy RK2023. So thanks again, see you in the next video. Bye.